All right. So okay, we're gonna begin. Thank you guys for joining us in our today's webinar. Today, as you guys might would have gotten information before, we actually doing a webinar on our government e-services for consumers and businesses, and we have our presenter, Mr. John Outridge. John is actually the head of the consulting unit at iGovTT, and Eddie Edison Eastman is joining us as well from TT Connect. Um, these guys have both have a wealth of experience in their fields. We also in the agenda today we'll be talking a bit about the iGovTT mandate, some of the existing e-services, electronic funds transfers framework, and a bit about Fastforward II. So first, before we get in, we just talk about the ICT Pro Committee a little bit. We actually part of the Chamber of Commerce. For those of you who are probably not IT, we are the information and communication technology professionals of Trinidad and Tobago. We formed this committee, and part of our vision is to transform Trinidad and Tobago into a digital society. Our mission is really to continuously improve the national ICT capabilities through engagement and partnership with people, businesses, and government. We have a lot of strategic imperatives, and our strategic goals fall under collaboration and learning among the ICT professionals, membership and relevant government agencies. And along the goals side, developing sustainable relationship with the government, lobbying for our membership in ICT related areas, deliver a signature annual event, which you guys will be getting some information on that soon. We want to be recognized by the Trinidad and Tobago community as the leader in ICT, capturing relevant data from the ICT community. So, so we're going to get right into the actual webinar, and I'll hand you over to John, who would take it from here.
Okay, Dr. Johnson. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. So, just to kind of give you guys quick background on myself, name is John Outridge. Been part of the ICT, local ICT community for a number of years. Too long to admit. Worked in a number of various company sectors from PwC, back all the way to IBM, and now I'm here in iGovTT as the head of the consulting unit. And basically to kind of take us into the mandate. Basically, iGovTT is a state enterprise. Our line ministry is the Ministry of Public Administration and Communication that has direct responsibility for development of ICT within the country. And our primary mandate is really to kind of, provide guidance, alignment, interoperability for ministries and agencies in terms of the implementation of ICT. So that way that, the public sector is a very large entity. There's a lot of moving parts. Technology is a key vehicle to deliver services. So it's been our remit to really kind of provide guidance, expertise, and kind of look at those areas where, we could kind of consolidate solutions, cut costs where applicable in terms of licensing and any other sort of shared services. Right, so just looking at this diagram, there's a kind of a snapshot of our business model. So everything we do is driven from the National ICT Plan. And from the National ICT Plan, that basically kind of depicts how technology is going to be leveraged and deployed throughout the country for a period of years in terms of what we are trying to enact. And the National ICT Plan, actually, this webinar is actually timed pretty well because the draft National ICT Plan has actually been launched. And a big part of that plan, a big focus is around e-business and especially payments. And also developing the national sector and allowing persons to be part. And, it's almost like a digital inclusion where persons can access government services online, pay for government services, and basically kind of enhance service delivery across the public sector. So what I'm going to do now is I want to pass over to Edson Eastman, who's going to kind of take us through a little bit about TT Connect. And after Ed makes his presentation, we'll kind of go in and kind of look at that plan, that national ICT plan, look at the different areas. I'll try to give you guys a snapshot and some sort of indicative timelines in terms of when things are expected to happen. And then again, we could kind of take it into a discussion. So I'm just going to pass over to Edson Eastman.
Okay, thanks very much, John. Just a quick introduction into who I am. My name is Edson Eastman, and I've been the head of the TD Connect unit since December of 2010. TD Connect continues to function as a unit under iGovTT, and our main mandate is that we provide a modern approach to government service delivery. TD Connect, by its nature, is multifaceted in that we have 6 different service delivery channels which we utilize for the delivery of government services and utilization of ICT technologies. Just as some additional information, our 6 channels are the service centers, our express buses, the mobile portal, the desktop portal, and we also have 4 kiosks and a hotline which is used for the answering of emails and requests from clients. We offer a number of services on behalf of government agencies, and part of our value proposition is that we utilize these channels to allow government ministries and agencies, partnering agencies, to have an enlarged footprint for service delivery. So a sample of the services that we currently have, and we currently have at least 50 government services. So a sample of those services would be the e-tax registration service, which we have with the IRD, would be the TT BizLink services, would be the computerized birth certificate service. We also do the National Integrated Business Incubation System, and of course the TD Connect ID, which is used as a facilitation point or a gateway or portal for government e-services. As of last month, August 2017, we would have registered approximately 34,000 TD Connect ID accounts. Yeah. Additionally, and we've seen since its launch in September of 2015, the e-tax users continue to use the TD Connect ID as a point of service delivery. And again, our mandate is to ensure that service delivery of government services and the expression of it is done in a way which allows customers to benefit. So we currently have, again, approximately 30,000 odd customers who would have benefited from the e-tax service, and approximately just under 12,000 TT BizLink accounts. So we find that increasingly with the use of the TD Connect ID, customers are taking a significant usage of the e-tax. Again, what we do is to ensure that for partnering ministries, we can have their footprint enlarged so that at the localized level, especially for even our express buses, we ensure that we take the partnering government ministries and agencies services to the localized level. So there are users who would use the TD Connect ID via the portal, but there are also users in San Francisco or in Superior or in Pinal Rock Road who would want to apply for government service. And by the use of our express buses, we can go to the localized level and provide these services. So that's just a very small way in which we are currently interacting with government ministries. We do have a number of services earmarked that we're working now with a number of ministries, one of which is the Ministry of Public Utilities, and we hope to have those services launched in our service centers and our express buses within a couple of months. Likewise as well, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. So our mandate is to ensure that ministries and agencies use the service centers, use the channels to ensure that regardless of if their users are very significantly ICT oriented or not, that you still have a clear contact point for accessing government services. And that's how TD Connect as a unit fulfills its mandate. So let me just turn you over to John once again. And thank you for listening.
Thanks, Ed, for providing that clarity there. So just moving according to the agenda here, what I'm going to talk about, given the topic of the seminar, is regards to both e-business and e-payments, because on the conception of this seminar, where iGovTT stands, we do realize that there's a lot of what I would like to call myths around where things are, the progression, and just to kind of provide some sort of clarity and understanding so that the audience today will at least have a better sense of, where the public sector is going in terms of e-business initiatives and e-payments. Now, while iGovTT, we do have a remit in terms of supporting especially infrastructure and architecture for this, e-payments as a whole, basically sits with a number of different agencies because it's such a big undertaking. You have the e-business roundtable, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Finance Treasury Division, the Ministry of Public and Administration and Communication, TAT, National Security, and each of these agencies or bodies, they're all treating with different aspects of it, from the legislation to the infrastructure to cybersecurity. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and my job today is to kind of present that so that in a way that you guys can have a kind of understanding, at least some sort of roadmap in terms of where things are going. So I'm just going to be just basically presenting some facts that are out there, and hopefully we can kind of field some questions from that. So at present, right now, from the legislation point of view, because this is one of the big areas that tends to have some gray areas. And when we talk about the legislation, we are talking about the partial proclamation of the Act. At this point in time, the Act is satisfactory in terms that government actually can accept and make payments via electronic funds, right? So the GPS system, which is used by the Treasury Division by the Ministry of Finance, has the capability. However, there's a lot of supporting work and other processes to be modified and so forth to get that. Again, that is something that I know the Ministry of Finance as well as the Central Bank are working towards in terms of, again, being able to make that public facing and so forth. So again, that is just where that is from that point of view. So at present, right now, government basically pays via check in accordance with any financial regulations for goods and services, salaries, and so forth. So later on when I go in the presentation, we'll talk about the other different types of payment options. Okay, so in regards to that, basically everything needs to be measured and managed, and EFT, or for what that stands for, is Electronic Funds Transfer Framework. And what that is, basically, that is the framework that is basically kind of going to outline how e-payment is going to be delivered across the public sector. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of different agencies and ministries that are dealing with different aspects of it, because it's just not as simple as the technology. We do know that within the private sector, there are businesses that are accepting payments online. You have these new disruptors, I like to call them, like you have Hubbox, you have My Carnival Bands, you have certain mass bands within the industry that are able to accept electronic payments, and all within obviously a certain framework. And from just my understanding from the payment side of it, obviously they utilize a payment gateway that is hosted within the Caribbean. And in regards to the electronic fund transfer framework, what is expected to happen as part of that is trying to be able to develop in its own gateway in order to process payments. Because again, you have security and all these other different conditions and processes to be a part of. So that's something that we will kind of go through with that. On saying that, where we are in terms of the EFT framework, it's kind of shortened. And how is that expected to be implemented? I know that the Ministry of Trade and Industry, in conjunction with the IDB, is currently at this point, seeking consultancy to start with that framework. And phase one out of that framework would be basically to outfit revenue collection points throughout the public sector with links terminals to be able to accept both debit and credit card payments as a phase one. Because I believe you can correct me if I'm wrong, at this point in time, you have to pay either via certified check for certain things or cash payments. So that would be phase one, again, to kind of enhance the service delivery. So upon successful completion of that, phase two would be then where you start looking at other payment type methods such as ACH and real-time gross settlement and your e-commerce side of it. So again, that is in a nutshell in terms of how it's expected to be implemented at the ground level via the revenue officers, and then move into the online platforms. All right. So what I want to do now is basically what we did for this session, seeing that the topic is e-business and more so e-payments, is kind of take a excerpt out of the Fastforward II plan, and just kind of spend a little time on that to kind of give the audience a little more context to kind of see where these initiatives are going to happen and which agencies are ultimately responsible, and to kind of show, the progression of these various initiatives. So the National ICT Plan, as it's named now, Fastforward II, it's basically designed to support the national development strategy for the country, which is known as Vision 2030. So I know that Vision 2030 document is available online, so you can check the Ministry of Planning's website, where you can get a copy, and that kind of outlines the strategy for the country. And within that, we have our strategic trust that is embedded within the Fastforward II plan that kind of outlines what government's plan in terms of moving ICT forward and basically enhancing public service delivery overall. Okay, so out of those strategic trusts, you have certain big initiatives such as improving connectivity across the country, because one would think that in this day and age with broadband, and you have TSTT and Digicel and 4G and 5G and all these marketing terms, there's wide areas of the population that doesn't have access to high-speed internet. There are areas in southern Trinidad that still actually use dial-up or DSL connection. And this has caused a lot of challenge, and as Ed was kind of alluding to, this is why the importance of services like TT Connect still exists, where you have those physical touch points as well as the mobile bus, because they're just simply persons throughout the population that don't have access to suitable connectivity to be able to access e-business. So, e-business on the government end is one thing, but also being able for the country as a whole to be able to access or have that full penetration of internet, is obviously a first step. And organizations like TAT and so forth were through their Wi-Fi initiative, and then you also have what was discussed at the ITU in terms of utilizing the spectrum from the TV white space to kind of basically provide a blanket Wi-Fi across the country. So again, that schools, offices, agencies, persons will be able to have internet access, in a meaningful way. This will also kind of lead into, in terms of increasing human capital development, because now that you have access to the internet, persons will be more likely to go out and be compelled to buy these devices that could take advantage of high-speed connectivity, such as your tablets and so forth. So inherently, they would be, developing themselves in terms of the use of technology. And the whole drive about it is that, and again, we use TT Connect as a benchmark, because you can look, as Ed mentioned, some statistics on TT Connect and the amount of traffic that comes into the service centers. So a benchmark to see if these two areas are kind of really getting traction is that, the more hits that we start seeing on the website and so forth, it'll kind of show that, persons are moving away from having to visit the office and going online to basically access those government e-business services. All right, and this in parcel again, once you have basically a connected economy, things are going on, economic development, you have a lot of entrepreneurs, you have a lot of persons that will be able to provide web services, people will be able to, again, use e-business models, be able to basically have online stores and so forth. And, this is just basically kind of creating digital inclusion for everyone across the country. Okay, so as I was mentioning before, in regards to that, e-payments and so forth, in terms of the legal and regulatory framework. So while the Electronic Transactions Act is partially proclaimed, and you also have the amendments to the Data Protection Act, the Exchequer and Audit Act, and Electronic Transfer of Funds Crime Act. So these are really the key pieces of legislation, from my knowledge, that really kind of creates that framework for you to be able to, for the public sector to conduct business online. And I believe the Prime Minister back in May at a ITU conference did mention that this is high on the government's legislative agenda. So the full proclamation is something that should be forthcoming. Okay. So I just want to carry you through in terms of what I was just talking about in terms of the payment gateway. And again, these are just excerpts that I pulled out of the National ICT Plan, so that you can kind of see exactly where the leading agencies are. So our line ministry, the Ministry of Public Administration and Communication, is really kind of charged with in terms of conceptualizing what this national payment gateway is going to be. And this is going to be basically supporting the different types of electronic payments that are going to be transacted, encompassing of portals and so forth. So that is something to be kind of conceptualized. All right, so moving on to basically kind of give you guys a idea in terms of some timelines to when these initiatives and stuff and who the driving agencies behind them, from what I was talking about, National ICT Plan, is we look at enhancing ICT infrastructure. So this is something that sits with Ministry of Public Administration and with ourselves, iGovTT. So we are currently undergoing that, through our core services, through the enhancement of our GovNet facilities, basically being able to provide consolidation and development of information systems across. And you also have the legal and regulatory type issues. So again, these are what I just spoke about. So that is expected to happen within this year to 2019. So some of the key things there. Cyber safety and security. So this is also something that's going to work hand in hand and together with the government moving to do business online, in terms of making sure that ministries and agencies and even the citizenry is aware of the dangers of online, all these different scams and viruses and the risk in terms of doing these different things. So in terms of strengthening the frameworks and the systems within the businesses and the agencies required to be online, this is something that is happening. You have iGovTT in conjunction with agencies like TTC CERT and National Security that will be kind of looking to move these things forward. Offering end-to-end e-services. So again, Ministry of Public Administration in conjunction with ourselves in terms of how do we deliver these services, and these are just some of the programs and initiatives that were pulled out from that plan. TT Connect again. So, once we have these services, now the idea is that you need to advertise it and you need to push citizens to access those services and kind of change the way that they do business. Because, at the end of the day, you have citizenry that are accustomed doing something or interacting with a specific ministry or agency in a particular way for a period of time. You obviously have to educate them and understand in terms of, especially if you're talking about doing sensitive transactions like, applying for a birth certificate or, doing any sort of name changes that, that the information being transmitted is secured. It's happening in real time and it's reliable. So, given the public confidence across on that, so TT Connect, iGovTT and Impact, will be one of our remits to kind of ensure that. And with this, they get obviously, the various strategies like increasing the government efficiency. So development of standards and guidelines for the use of technology, standardizing on architecture and frameworks for information systems across ministries. Looking at various other enterprise agreements that the government and the public sector can benefit in order to deliver this new type of service. Rehashing on the national data center, things like document management, information management, content management. All these are new areas that the public sector will be kind of delved in. Apart from your traditional way of IT in terms of managing infrastructure, now will be more services and development of solutions. So this is where the public sector is expected to kind of inherently move to as we try to move towards doing e-business. At the end of the day, you have to be able to tie back in what you're getting online back to the information systems of the various ministries and agencies. So be able to provide, meaningful reporting and timely responses and so forth. So, as you see in some of these timeframes there, we're talking about 2017 to 2021. Obviously initiatives that might get completed faster might move things up in that time frame, but these are again are just indicative timeframes. But it's just giving you some ideas in terms of the scale of these initiatives and a snapshot of a lot of the moving pieces to kind of get this thing done. You have issues such as data classification policy. So now you have information that's going to be stored in the cloud. How is that going to be treated? Who is that information going to be shared with? Where's the cloud? Is the cloud public? Is the cloud private? US, which territories? So all these things, rest in data classification and development of the supporting policies and so forth. And, again, advancing e-commerce as a whole. So moving more and more government businesses online. So, migrating these manual processes and services and automating them into various systems, integrating various ministries, because the truth is, one ministry can't go online and others not go, because there are a lot of linkages and there's a lot of moving pieces. So for example, you have the Ministry of Social Development, which Ed was mentioning, which deals with the provision of grants and services to the population. But in order to apply for a grant, you need to have things like a national ID card. You need to also verify where's your current address. So this might be the best agency that might sit with would maybe the Elections and Boundaries Commissions. So these agencies also need to have fit for purpose systems to have this information to feed back into even immigration, so that when you are now applying for a grant, this system could talk to real time to these various agencies. So say, this is Edson Eastman. He lives at Arima. He's 35. He's been a national. So again, reducing the risk of fraud and any sort of issues. So again, it has to be a coordinated approach, and again, it's a lot of moving pieces and so forth to kind of move that. Then you also have the Ministry of Trade and the single electronic window upgrade, which will basically kind of ease doing business within Trinidad and Tobago. So applying for your various permits and licenses and so forth. So again, migrating certain things you do at the legal affairs in terms of your documents and so forth. So, again, they'll have different agencies that they would need to talk to. Again, that has started with customs and the ASICUDA system and so forth, but there are other different agencies that will also need to link as part of that. So there are things that are happening in regards to that. Also, green ICT is something that's big within the Fastforward II program. So again, being able to, reduce the carbon footprint, deliver, basically purchase ITC services that are not, huge in power consumption. So development of policies and how is that going to be governed? E-waste, how do we treat with it? That's always that has always been a big issue, and there have been many local companies doing their own things to kind of work on that. So, and the public sector is the largest consumer of ICT. So if anything should happen in green ICT, it definitely would be, it's in the right place to kind of start from that. And then going back into our justice system, we all know that crime is a big issue, and information security, and then you have technologies like GPS and fingerprint IDs, and you have all these AFIS systems and being able to target threats in real times and so forth. So a lot of this is prescribed within that national ICT plan. So all of these are things that are tying in, and again, the ministry and iGovTT are obviously the kind of leaders within that space. So I mean, that's it for my formal presentation stuff. I guess what I would want to do is, we did get some questions that I wanted to provide answers to those persons before I guess we open up the floor to any more questions from the audience. Yeah. So prior to coming on, we got a couple of questions. So I'm just going to start from the top. So I mean, government's intention to fully proclaim the Electronics Act. So I guess I kind of spoke to that, kind of understand and highlighting the various agencies. And I also did mention, as you would have seen from the plan, that it is a high priority item. So I am assuming that this is something that's going to be happening in a fairly quick time frame. So I hope I responded to your question sufficiently. Updated position e-waste. So again, through the national ICT plan, I just showed you where there is focus being shed on green ICT. So, obviously it's in its infancy, and, to things, initial stages such as policy development and, data collection, all these things will have to be done. But this is being remitted with iGovTT. So, we have already started on our end to kind of do some groundwork to kind of treat with that. So, I guess we would keep people updated as we kind of partner to do further sessions on this. Electronic tendering. So electronic tendering, I just saw it as a blanket statement. So I'm just going to kind of get some interpretation of what I guess I understand. So electronic tendering, we do offer tender notices online via TT Connect for ministries and agencies. And what that basically does is that, ministries and agencies who have tender for services, they can host it on the TT Connect portal so people can see, and they can point back to their website or their point of contact. But I guess what this person is alluding to is like a full end-to-end electronic tendering type system. This I know would obviously, while we do have companies like TSTT who do have an electronic tendering platform that they utilize. I know WASA also has one. Okay. Where we at in terms of actually being able to do, I guess, a more wider adoption of electronic tendering, I guess would have to be advised by any conditions set out in the Public Procurement Act. So it is something that actually is within our remit that iGovTT itself is kind of looking at to kind of figure out if we can, look at that and basically be able to support a electronic tendering solution throughout the public sector, and be able to provide that as a service. So this is something I guess you could stay tuned to get more information on. What is the status of GovNet 3.2? So GovNet right now, so just to kind of give a little context of, I guess, because we have some persons who are not within the public sector who won't know what GovNet is. So GovNet was basically an initiative started back in 2003, and it is really meant to, it was started as that government backbone, providing interconnectivity between ministries and agencies. That was phase one. Phase two was the rolling out of the data center. So basically providing that business continuity and disaster recovery for ministries and agencies. Now, 2003, 2008, when you talk about ICT, they might as well be using 100 years. So obviously systems, even the needs of the customers who are on GovNet now have kind of escalated what GovNet could provide. So that is actually right now being, the new version of GovNet, I should say, is being conceptualized. And, for the public sector folks, they would know that at this point in time, ministries are moving to Office 365 for cloud-based emails. So this in itself is, a kind of first stage in terms of, to kind of give some guidance on what GovNet is going to be in terms of being able to support more value added and these sort of new services on the infrastructure. So, I guess this is something that's obviously going to be pushed through the Ministry of Public Administration and Communication. So, you could always stay tuned to their updates and their circulars to get more information on that. But it is coming. Something big is coming, at least from where I sit. Can you change your registration online? And this, I guess, is for the TT Connect. Initial registration was done manually. And I just got some notes back from Edson here. So basically, answering this question backwards first, initial registration was done manually. The reason why you have to do manual registration is because you need to be validated as a person. And again, as I mentioned to you, in terms of the inability or the lack of facilities to share information across different agencies, a TT Connect would be a first point to kind of understand when you are registering for TT Connect ID, which is that ID that you can use to access that single ID to a multitude of business services. You need to validate if this person applying is who they claim to be, and you need to have a copy of the documents and so forth. So unfortunately, right now, that validation process has to be manual, as that proof of identity needs to be verified. In terms of being able to change your registration details online, at this point in time, you cannot change your biodata. However, you can change your address. So any other different types of amendments that you may need to do to a TT Connect ID you have to visit a TT Connect center, or I guess look out for the bus and where scheduled to be in order to accomplish that. Where are we on government? The next question is, where are we on the government accepting e-payments for the services? What steps should the private sector take to make this a reality? And the second part is, how can the private sector, consumers, and businesses prepare themselves to benefit from government e-services? Okay, so I guess I'll take two parts to that question. The first part is obviously where the government, so I kind of went through that in my presentation, and I hopefully provided some more clarity for you guys to kind of give an idea where the public sector is in regards to e-payments, number of initiatives, and the EFT framework and stuff like that to be put in place. But what steps should the private sector take to make this a reality? So I will take this question, I guess, on two ends, because I'm assuming that we do have local ICT companies that might have, and representatives on this this webinar that might probably be looking in terms of an opportunity for the ICT sector. And where I should put this is that I just kind of shared with you that sort of roadmap where things are expected to progress. And what that means is that you're definitely going to have a lot of change and a lot of transformation happening within the public sector in terms of, changing out of infrastructure, requiring services and assistance in regards to deployment of information systems. So what that's going to translate to is, I think, definitely you're going to see a lot of more opportunities, requests for proposals for these sort of services to assist the various ministries and agencies to enhance them in terms of their transformation. So in terms of opportunities for the local ICT industry, I do expect this to really generate some interest from there. In terms of anything else from the private sector to make this a reality, I think I just kind of depicted that it's, from that end, it's really in terms of getting the entire population really kind of, ready to consume technology. So, basically, this, I guess, will be going back out to training courses. And, sometimes we look in the papers and we make jokes like people still offering literacy courses, but the reality is there's a large segment of the population that actually doesn't know how to use a computer. Because, again, as I said, they don't have access to high-speed internet. And what good is a computer these days or any sort of device without access to high-speed internet? So, in terms of, getting your parents up to date, buying them a smartphone, a tablet, and I guess that is some ways you can kind of assist with that. How can the private sector, consumers, and businesses prepare themselves to benefit from the government e-services? So again, obviously, as with anything within public sector, you continue via various associations and your various interactions to push for these sort of initiatives and this policy development process. At the end of the day, it is going to be value for money for all of us, taxpayers, citizenry of the country, to be able to do business easily. In regards to the private sector is going to definitely benefit in terms of increase efficiency and effectiveness. Also, transparency and accountability are things that are going to happen, as a byproduct out of these sort of different services. So, being able to do more type services online, being able to, again, we already have e-tax on stream, which is, as I would have mentioned, a huge success, and that kind of takes down the burden, administrative burden, both from the private and the public sector. But then also, I know we also, the Ministry of Works and Transport, now you have being able to go online and search for, your registration plates and so forth. So you would see a more extension of those types of services coming forward. So definitely there's a lot of benefits to come in terms of time saving. And again, persons not having to leave Miara or San Fernando to come into Port of Spain to do, transactions at various ministries that may be housed in Port of Spain. So those are the types of government, types of efficiencies you expect to see. And the last question here, what is the best way to contact iGovTT? It is hard to get through to them online. So just reading a script from my marketing people here, we are currently in the process of updating our website. So it's going to be a lot more customer-centric, I should say. But in the interim, if you want to contact us via email, the best way is to do so via contact us at igovtt.tt. And, you should receive a response in a fairly short period of time. Also through the direct phone number, which is 627-5600. Yeah, so these are just the questions that I got prior to. I don't know if we have any other comments, questions. So, yeah? Okay. I've just been informed it's nothing bad, so I don't need to. All right, so, okay. All right, so the first question from Jayum, user handle: why does the government need to be involved in the operations of a payment gateway? Isn't their rule really just about legislation? Very good question. Again, as I said, the initiative was announced. How the initiative is going to be delivered, or what that payment gateway is going to be, I am not sure. Again, what the execution of that is going to be. So, but that's a good question. I don't think from where I sit, I don't think the intention is for the government to have its own gateway and operate that. That is not something the government would be. And I would assume that, again, this might be something applicable for a public-private partnership type model. But again, these are the initiatives that are just outlined, and the executions and more details will, I guess, be released. So, as iGovTT, we would, try to keep everybody posted about these things. And you would see, again, announcements in the daily papers and so forth. All right, second question from Pan-Caribbean.org. Hi, what percentage of the population would not have access to fast internet connectivity? So I could answer from my end in terms of studies we would have done. You can also check out the Central Statistical Office website, or even the TAT reports to get more information. But, from our informal surveys, how we looked at it actually was that and I'm just looking back for the statistics, there are probably 100 and so basically, I can't remember the statistics, but let's outline the areas, for example. So there are areas of Lupino, if you're looking at East Trinidad, what I'm saying doesn't have access to internet. I'm talking about fast internet, right? So I'm talking about where the telecommunication providers don't have fiber run to certain areas. So I know there are areas of Lupino. There are also areas within San Fernando. So you're talking about some areas of Pinal, Santa Flora, basically down in that sudden, and there are a lot of different areas. because we get this information because we also deal directly with the Ministry of Education, who's basically trying to work on doing SEA online. But a challenge to that is that there are schools that just basically don't have access to that connectivity, that high-speed connectivity to do that. So there are a lot of different pockets throughout, especially the majority really is in the southern end of the island that the telecommunication providers at this point in time, because I'm sure that they're making strides to do that, to have fiber infrastructure rolled out at those locations. But I guess you could check those websites to actually get the exact statistics, but this is just from my informal information. Marvin Marcel, reverse auction, does it also form part of the e-procurement initiatives? Again, Marvin, these are things that we are now kind of looking at. So again, looking at the various pieces of legislation or any type of other literature to kind of help guide us. At the end of the day, even for me, it was a surprise coming from the private sector into the public sector, but accountability and transparency is a very big thing. And especially when you're dealing with public funds. So, while you might think it's simple just to go out and get a solution, we have to ensure that the solution meets every, set requirement, it's value for money. Also, how does it translate or how does it interact with any other piece of legislation? So I know the Procurement Act would be one of those pieces. And at this point in time, I'm not sure officially where that is. So I guess e-tendering is something that would have to be part and parcel of that. So, but we definitely will kind of keep posted on that. But, in the meantime, we are looking at, the idea is to look at solutions and, try to do some groundwork while those things are happening. But I can't answer that question fully, but, we'll obviously have discussions on that. Abdullah Mohammed, ministries tend to like their silos. Interesting. How is iGov going to assure us that these things in the plan will get implemented and the citizens get value for money? So, interesting question. And I would assume a lot of people on this webinar are part of the ICT industry. So ministries tend to like their silos. And this is not an iGovTT response for this. I guess this is my response where I'm sitting at. As ICT individuals, we tend to move around a lot, throughout the industry. And, you tend to get opportunities based on, what was your role at a previous job? What did you help move? What was the projects that you would have done? These types of initiatives, we tend to be very guarded with these things. You don't want to leave a blueprint of some big initiative that you did lying around for somebody else to come and recoup that glory. Because, when you go into your next job, you might probably use that same plan to help move along, So I wouldn't say it's ministries tend to like their silos. I just think it's, and again, this is me personally speaking, I think as ICT professionals, we tend not to share a lot, especially in terms of solutions and things that we do. We tend to like to keep our secret sauce for certain things. If I can do it well, I can probably execute it somewhere else. This is just my end. From the ministry side of it, again, judging from that sort of behavior, I would assume that, obviously, again, because the public sector is, the ICT persons within the public sector is a very niche community. These are persons that have been operating for a very long time. They have a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge. I actually, coming into the ministries, some people have the perception that persons operating in the ministries, they have a certain quality or can do a certain thing. But I found that to be very contrary. I've met very bright and effective people within the ministries, and given the circumstances that they have to operate and are able to do a lot with the resources that they have. In terms of how iGovTT is going to kind of help address that. So where we kind of sit is, at least where I am from the consulting unit, is I want to be able to capture these sort of different things within a knowledge base. I want to be able to develop a portal. So for example, somebody coming into a ministerial agency, looking at these various plans, wanting to do a solution or wanting to go out and procure a service. Again, you may have no experience. You can probably log into this iGovTT portal and you can look at various citations, because again, at the end of the day, a lot of initiatives and big ICT projects, I would say they fail for a lot of various reasons. A lot of things don't transition or don't happen in a timely manner. And, there's hardly ever kind of lessons learned type approach in terms of understanding, or from that point of in terms of execution, where this would have fell down. You always look at different initiatives that a ministry is trying to undertake. They might probably, for example, a ministry might want to migrate one of the services to an information system, but then the IT manager at that point in time, who was the architect of that system, might have moved on. And again, somebody else coming in now has to start at ground zero, because again, he might have looked at what this person might have done, and he want to do it a different way. So again, you scrap back the plan. You tend to, you don't ever want to go. You feel more comfortable in terms of developing the solution from scratch, so you could understand it. So where iGovTT, I guess, could sit in that, because iGovTT really kind of sits in the middle of the process, is be able to provide that facilitation and have that, that knowledge base, that repository then of projects and initiatives and, steps and guides and methodologies to kind of help guide public sector ICT standardization. So, for example, if you want to do a document management system, you can go in and you can see, okay, this ministry tried to do it. This was the cost. This was how long, where did it reach, where did it stop. So even from your budgeting and, dedication of resources, you might probably think in your experience, something like this could probably take a year. In reality, it might take 3, given everything else, so to kind of help with that decision-making process. So that's why I see iGovTT would kind of sit in that to kind of provide that standardization, which is really within our remit. And in terms of how is going to ensure that these things in the plan will get implemented and the citizens get value for money. So that really is within our remit. That's where we want to sit in terms of, again, when what we are trying to do is, and again, this is for the ministry folks on the call, is that, if you guys have any initiatives or plans or any projects that you want to implement, we know resources are tight right now. The consulting unit, we have a lot of bright people inside there. We have capacity. You could call us and we could assist with, your business requirements gathering, your functional requirements, really helping it to understand, because we have persons within the organization who have been a part of many large-scale projects, GovNet being one of them. These are multi-million-dollar projects, a lot of moving parts. We have a very efficient project management team. So we have the knowledge, we have the experience. We can come in and guide you and kind of help you, And this is a big part of an ICT. Nobody likes to do documentation. Everybody hates to deal with the paper side of it. So that's where we kind of come in and provide that sort of structured approach in terms of documenting the requirements, making sure that everything that you have there, you're capturing, the right requirements. So again, citizens value for money, making sure that when somebody tries to procure a solution, that it is fit for purpose, it is aligned to the vision for the country, it is aligned to the national ICT plan, is aligned to the standards set out for public sector. So, at the end of the day, a provider charging $1 million for a solution as really $100,000. We provide that sort of guidance from a procurement standpoint, and we look at it and, hey, this is not what this is supposed to cost. So, we really try to keep those things in check, especially with the procurement of ICT. I hope I didn't insult anybody, but that's just how I think with it. Yeah, but that's, so I don't know if I have any more questions. Yeah. Okay, from user handle Jayume, wouldn't it be faster to try to exit as many government service to private sector as possible? That is interesting. So it is a ticklish question, and I guess what you're referring to there, is that PPP delivery model. I could give an example, and I guess this is what you might probably be kind of looking at, in terms of why is it, for example, traffic tickets or so forth, a private sector entity could partner with the government, provide the infrastructure, provide the support services, and say, hey, for every traffic ticket issued, give us a percentage. That model will pay back for itself. Again, that is one of the areas that somebody within the private sector could kind of work towards, I guess, speaking to government in terms of being able to provide that services. Given the economy and given where we are in terms, especially on financial resources, while the country, feels the brunt of it, especially within the public sector and budgets, those things really get slashed. And, I'm thinking now, gone are the days where you're going to see these large capital intensive projects and ministries having millions of dollars to implement solutions and so forth. So, as ICT persons, and within the private and public sector, you know, we have to think a lot more creatively, you know, in terms of how we want to do these things. So, I mean, the PPP model is a good model. You know, again, I don't have any recent examples per se of it being delivered, but again, it really depends on the organization and, you know, your risk appetite to partner with a public sector agency to provide that, because again, the money simply isn't there to give you an upfront and treat with it. You know, it really has to be that sort of long-term relationship to kind of go forward, you know. So that'll just be my my input on it. Again, all this up for debate, discussion. Oh, okay, sure. All right, so I guess pass it over to somebody for closing remarks. So let's pass over to John Hansen.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you very much, Edmund, for your time today in helping us present this webinar. Thank you to the viewers for your questions, your comments. All right. We on the last slide on the screen there, you would see our ICT Pro website URL. If you have any questions, feel free to check out our URL. Get in contact with us. Give us any questions you have. Any areas you guys want to see for any future webinars. You know, this information will definitely come in handy. Thank you guys for your time, your viewership, and see you at the next event.